Some people look intelligent until they start talking. You know the type. They use fancy words, quote books they half read, and love correcting others just to feel taller. But here's the thing. The louder someone tries to look smart, the more they reveal their insecurity. Because true intelligence doesn't need to prove itself. Psychology says our minds crave the feeling of intelligence more than actual growth. We want to seem sharp, sound logical, and look confident, even if deep down we're uncertain and confused. And that's the danger. These subtle habits trick your brain into thinking you're growing, when in reality you're standing still. So let's break down the quiet habits that fool your mind into believing you're smart, while keeping you stuck in average thinking. 1. You over-explain everything. You think you're being thorough. You think that adding more detail makes you sound knowledgeable. But according to research on over-justification bias, when people explain too much, it's not about clarity, it's about insecurity. The more you justify, the more it shows you're unsure of your point. Smart people simplify. They say more with less. They understand that true clarity doesn't need decoration. If you always feel a desperate need to defend or prove your perspective, ask yourself why. Over-explaining isn't a sign of intelligence. It's a sign of doubt dressed as confidence. The wiser you get, the quieter your explanations become. 2. You chase information, not understanding. You read books, watch deep videos, listen to podcasts, and maybe even quote psychology online. But when someone asks you to teach what you just learned, you freeze. That's not learning, that's collecting. Psychologists call it the illusion of knowledge. Your brain mistakes exposure for mastery. You confuse "I've heard of it" with "I understand it." True intelligence isn't about how much you consume, it's about how well you connect. Knowledge is potential energy. It only becomes power when you use it, when you can explain it simply to a child, or apply it when life tests you. Otherwise, you're just hoarding ideas you'll never use. 3. You argue to win, not to learn. Ever met someone who can't stand being wrong? They'll twist logic, cherry-pick facts, and argue endlessly, not to discover truth, but to protect their ego. That's not intelligence. That's motivated reasoning. It's when your brain works overtime not to find what's true, but to confirm what you already believe. Every debate becomes a performance, not a conversation. And here's the sad part. The more you argue to win, the less you actually grow, because being right teaches you nothing. Being wrong and learning why is where the real wisdom begins. Smart people don't fear being wrong. They use it, they adjust, evolve, and move forward. 4. You confuse skepticism with wisdom. Some people think doubting everything makes them smart. They call themselves realists, but it's often just disguised cynicism. Extreme skepticism isn't depth, it's defense. It's easier to reject everything than to understand something. When you question just to look superior, you're not being wise, you're being afraid. Psychologically, this is called defensive ignorance. It's a wall people build to protect their ego from complexity. Real thinkers don't reject ideas, they explore them, test them, refine them. Fake smart people dismiss first and think later. True intelligence isn't about saying, "That's wrong." It's about asking, "What if I'm missing something?" 5. You use logic to avoid emotion. A lot of people brag about being rational. They say, "I don't get emotional, I'm logical." But neuroscience shows logic and emotion aren't enemies. They're teammates. The prefrontal cortex and amygdala constantly communicate to help us make balanced decisions. When you shut off emotion, you're not more rational. You're half blind. People who suppress emotion make colder, riskier, and often worse choices because they ignore intuition and empathy. Real logic uses emotion as context. It's not about feeling less. It's about understanding your feelings enough to use them wisely. If you think emotions make you weak, it only means you haven't mastered them yet. 6. You correct others to feel superior. We all know that one person who can't resist fixing small mistakes. Pronunciation, grammar, facts that don't even matter. It feels harmless, but psychologically, it's rooted in linguistic insecurity, a subtle need to regain control and feel powerful. Studies show that people who constantly correct others do it less from intelligence and more from ego anxiety. It's a quick way to feel above others. But here's what's ironic. Truly intelligent people rarely correct unless it's necessary. They don't flex knowledge. They share it when it helps. The goal isn't to look right, it's to make things right. 7. You hide behind big words. You use complex vocabulary, long sentences, and academic buzzwords because you think it sounds impressive. But a Princeton study revealed that people who deliberately use complicated language are seen as less intelligent. Why? Because clarity is the ultimate proof of understanding. Confusion is often camouflage. The smartest people simplify the hardest things. Einstein once said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." Big words might dazzle the insecure, but they distance the wise. True intelligence isn't about sounding smart. It's about being understood. 8. You think knowing about something means you understand it. Knowing about philosophy doesn't make you wise. Knowing about psychology doesn't make you emotionally intelligent. Knowing about success doesn't make you disciplined. Knowledge is like a mirror. It reflects who you could be. But until you act on it, it changes nothing. Real growth happens when you live your knowledge, not when you repeat it. You can memorize 100 self-help books and still make the same mistakes because information doesn't transform you. Application does. Intelligence is a practice, not a posture. 9. You value appearing certain more than staying curious. Many people fear saying, "I don't know." But those are the most powerful 3 words in learning. The moment you admit you don't know, your brain opens up. Curiosity rushes in. But when you pretend you already know, your growth stops instantly. This is why fake smart people stay stagnant. They chase certainty instead of curiosity. Real intelligence is comfortable in uncertainty. It's not afraid of the unknown. It's fascinated by it. The wisest minds don't seek to be right. They seek to understand more. 10. You treat learning like a performance, not a process. You read to look intellectual. You quote authors to impress. You learn for aesthetics, not evolution. But intelligence isn't something you show. It's something you become. Learning isn't a badge you wear. It's a mirror that humbles you. Smart people aren't obsessed with appearing intelligent. They're obsessed with improving their thinking. They don't need an audience. Their growth happens quietly, privately, away from applause. 11. You dismiss simplicity. People who crave the illusion of intelligence often hate simple answers. They think, if it's simple, it can't be smart. But simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Leonardo da Vinci knew that. Smart people simplify not because they lack depth, but because they see the depth clearly. Overcomplication isn't a sign of wisdom. It's a symptom of confusion. 12. You chase validation instead of truth. We live in a time where intelligence has become performance art. People don't seek truth. They seek claps. They quote science not to educate, but to dominate. They confuse being articulate with being insightful. But real thinkers don't care about being admired. They care about understanding themselves, reality, and others more deeply. Intelligence isn't a tool for status. It's a path to awareness. And here's the paradox. The more you chase the appearance of intelligence, the further you move from actual wisdom. Because every moment spent trying to look smart is a moment you're not becoming smart. True growth is quiet. It happens in reflection, in humility, in silence. Not in proving, not in performing. The truth is, fake intelligence impresses people who don't think. Real intelligence transforms the way you think. You don't need to appear brilliant. You need to stay curious, humble, and brutally honest with yourself. Because the moment you stop trying to look intelligent is the exact moment you start becoming it. So next time you catch yourself over-explaining, arguing to win, or hiding behind complicated words, pause. Ask yourself, am I trying to learn or just trying to look smart? The answer to that one question could define how far your mind grows. And remember, intelligence isn't about outthinking others. It's about outgrowing the person you were yesterday.